Hey, everybody, welcome to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. Boy, things are cranking, and we are having a wonderful conversation, a really informed conversation about the Trump assassination attempt. A lot of people have a lot of questions about it, but we also are dealing with political fallout because this is the week of the of the Republican convention. President Trump said, I had a speech, I've thrown it out. I'm coming up with something new. I'm going to talk unity, which is what President Biden is calling for. There's a kumbaya moment, but we want unity, but unity over what? Unity around what? What's going on here? Of course, we need unity. We need a lot of things. We also need to know what happened here because a lot of people are now fearful of going to political rallies. President Biden is going to be speaking at the NAACP convention in just a matter of days. And a lot of people are saying, you know what? I had some friends out in Vegas who said, I don't know if I'm going to go to that. Because just the tensions are too high. I don't trust it. So it does throw a monkey wrench in a lot of plans. Got my brother from another mother right here, Josh Feinstein. Hello. But everybody, I want you to meet me on X at Santita J. At Santita J. Please become my friend over there. Join me at Santita J. And of course, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe, And the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Please like and share. Everybody like and share the show right now. Please like and share the show because we've got a lot of questions. And it turns out God bless you, we do have a marksman here. Because many of us don't have an understanding of guns and how they work. And Attorney Robert Patillo, host of his own show on WAOK in Atlanta. Indeed, you can hear him everywhere. It's from 1 to 4 every Sunday. You don't want to miss it. I love it. 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. He's going to break this down for us and answer a lot of questions that many of us have. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, so glad that you are here with us today. Of course, we've got Dwight McKee, Dr. D, a senior advisor to Cornel West campaign, the dean of the Ma'afa Redemption Project. He's doing a lot of magnificent work with our young people here in Chicago. Indeed, there's a documentary that was premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival about the work that he and Arnie Duncan and Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch are doing, helping these young people. And of course, we have got back from vacation, Josh Feinstein. That's right. Locks and ham hocks. I know he is like, I'm kosher. Don't do this to me. But what can I tell you? This is being an American. We're all in the same pot, baby. There you go. That's what we do. So, but of course, giving mad respect and love to everybody and their traditions. We love each other and we have a lot of fun with each other, and that's just how we do it. But I want to start with you, Attorney Robert Patillo, because I think we can all agree, those of us who were on in the first hour. Well, you were with us, of course, Tennessee State Representative Hardaway. And you did say, I initially had questions. But that in the post JFK world is not unusual. I asked my mother, and I'll lead in to you, Attorney Robert Patillo, with this. I said, what in your lifetime, because our parents lived through the Kennedy, they lived through Brown versus Board of Education. They lived through Emmett Till. My parents said, seeing Emmett Till's picture changed me profoundly. I was never the same after I saw that. My mother was 11. My father was Emmett Till's age. He was 14. Said I was never the same after I saw that. I got freedom on the brain. And that's what Rosa Parks said happened to her. I couldn't move when I thought about Emmett. So there's that. They lived through JFK's election. They lived through his assassination in the middle of the street. Malcolm X, Medgar. They were taking people out. Then you get JFK. LBJ says, I'm not going to take the nomination. He had gone from being so popular to being most unpopular. And then 4 days later, Dr. King is killed. 6 weeks later, Robert Kennedy, who was at his funeral, he's killed. Americans have gone, I don't believe And we lived through Fred Hampton's death in 69 here in Chicago. I mean, and we saw that they lied. They said it was a shootout between Mark Clark and Fred Hampton. Then his lawyer, G. Flint Taylor, went to the apartment and saw that all the bullet shells were going into his apartment. It was a massacre by the police.
Mm-hmm.
Then the state's attorney, and Dwight will tell you, because he came to meet with Dwight, because Dwight's been a youth leader. He said, no, they're lying on me. This was the FBI who told us to do this. They left us holding the bag. Wow. So mom said, no, the JFK assassination was the most awful thing. I said, really? She said, oh, yeah. She said, because out of that assassination, everything else collapsed. Dr. King said he wasn't going to make it through the decade.
Mm-hmm.
Said, they're going to kill him like this, I'm out. So I'm going to do everything I can while I'm here, because I'm not going to live to 1970. I know it. I said a mouthful, but it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot. Attorney Robert Patillo, help us to wrap our minds around Saturday, because I think State Representative Hardaway, as you would agree, I'm sure, his explanation of the bullet and being and the shooting was just riveting, and it really gave us another kind of understanding of what it is that we saw. Lorraine, yes, it is my birthday tomorrow. Yes. I love it. That's right. Lord, please give me another year. I don't count my chickens before they hatch. Robert and CLS, how you doing? Carol and Hannah from South Carolina, Andre from Chicago, Lorraine from Chicago, Carol from Beverly Hills, Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, Bernadette, how you doing, sweetie? Everybody like and share the show. Robert, take us away.
Well, just by way of example, it's going to be particularly helpful for people who are watching online, but I'm going to describe it best that I can. All right, so as we said the first hour, AR-15 and 223 bullet.
No, let us see the gun.
Okay,
it's not something that's
AR-15.
small.
This is my little mini that for concealed carry. Fits in a book bag, folds up. But then also you have AR-15 9mm. Then you have AR-15 7.62. Then you have AR-15 50 cal. The reason I point this out is all these guns are the same size, exact same dimension, exact same weight. However, the 9mm AR fires a bullet this big. The 223 AR fires a bullet this big. The 7.62 AR fires a bullet this big. And then, of course, the 50 cal AR, the Beowulf, fires a bullet this big. That is all to say that out of the exact same gun and the exact same platform, you can fire any bullet of any size. I'm putting it up to the camera, from 9mm to 223 to 7.62 to 50 cal. The reason that's significant is if you're doing long range shooting, if you're planning on sniping somebody, if you're planning on being 200 feet away from somebody, you don't pick this bullet. If you're buying a gun that you're going to use for a shooting and an assassination, where you know you're going to be several hundred feet away from the individual, a football field and a half is the distance. It was 150 to 170 yards this was away. So we're talking about if you're at Soldier Field, if you're in one press box on one side, all the way across the field to the press box on the other side, that's a 150-yard shot. You don't shoot a bullet this small that far, because you're talking about this little area right here being the part at the top that leaves the gun that weighs, as I said, 55 grams in most AR-15 223 bullets. And when you're dealing with wind, when you're dealing with bullet drop, when you're dealing with just simply the amount of black powder inside, if you're going to have the same gun of the same size, why wouldn't you pick this bullet that is this big over this bullet that is this big? Just look at the difference in the amount of black powder in it. Look at the difference in the size of the projectile at the top. But you mean they want us to believe that this person, this 20-year-old, went out and purchased a firearm after they failed out of their high school marksmanship class, and then was able to hit this shot from nearly a football field and a half away. People are going to have questions. People are going to doubt the official narrative. And the more that people doubt the official narrative, I'm already seeing this in right-wing chat groups, saying that this is either a false flag attack, that this was a psyop, that the shooter probably was dead before they put him up there, all sorts of things. That's what happens when the official narrative does not make sense. And right now, the official narrative doesn't make sense. And they're asking for this moment of national unity prior to them explaining exactly what the hell happened. And there are many Americans who are not willing to accept that, given all the things that we've seen. And we very much are in a 1968 moment. If you go back 4 years from 1968, we're talking about the summer of 1964. If you go back 4 years from right now, we're talking about the summer of George Floyd. Massive social changes and what Barry Goldwater called a white lash. The MAGA movement has been a white lash to the progress made both by President Obama and on racial justice and equality. This is why they're going after DEI. This is why they're going after critical race theory, because they understand that the social dynamics of America are changing, and white America has never been one to simply take that line down. And we as the American people have to demand more before we simply say, well, we want to move together in unity. Are we unifying around Project 2025? Are we unifying around deporting 20 million people? Are we uniting around ending all the progress we made during the Civil Rights Movement? Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk have said repealing the Civil Rights Movement of 1964 and tearing down the King Monument, which they want to do. Well, before you can call for unity, there has to be a truth and reconciliation process, as we saw in South Africa, where it has to be a process by which we are sorting out exactly who are these actors in our government, and are there foreign actors at play, because we now know there was absolutely foreign actors at play in the 1960s when it came to many of the social revolutions that were taking place. Much of that was financed by Soviet propaganda, by Israeli propaganda, etc. And we know from online bot farms right now that much of the petty coup against Biden was coming from overseas sources, misinformation that were meant to break up the American electorate. That is all to say we need to have public officials who are in the right headspace and who are of the right heart, that they truly want to move America forward in a position of unity. As I have said, this will be the time that in any functional society, President Biden and President Trump will walk out onto the Rose Garden together. And they will do that today. They will walk out into the Rose Garden together and announce the measures they are taking to secure the nation, to calm the fears that we have these rogue assassins and rogue forces out there causing political violence and potentially attempting to either launch a coup against the current president or assassinate the previous president. It seems that there are people above the pay grade of either Biden or Trump that are calling the shots, and we have to reassure the American people that the people in charge are actually in charge, and that we are dealing in an actual representative democracy and not going to turn into a military junta in the next several months. Many Americans are scared, and they should be. Many Americans are distrustful, and they should be. And what our leaders have to do is try to establish that trust by making sure we're putting forth one, truth in the investigation of this, but secondarily, a unity platform that will bring all Americans together and stop this political division and rhetoric that I think is driving this level of extremism that we're seeing on a national basis. If a school full of dead children wasn't enough to push for gun control, maybe President Trump's ear will be enough to push conservatives to the point of saying, well, we should have at least some level of common sense gun control to help keep these weapons out of the hands of what they claim to be, if this official narrative is true, a mentally ill young man who decided to try to shoot the president. But also the point we're making during the break, it's hard enough to make a shot, as we described, from a football field and a half away with a gun that's not made to shoot that far in windy conditions. But also, for somebody, that shot isn't made by somebody who's mentally ill. You have to have breath control. You have to have a hand that doesn't shake. You have to be at complete calm and in almost a Jedi-like meditation state to make a shot from that far with a rifle of that nature. And somebody who is quote unquote crazy or mentally ill or unstable isn't able to do that. The American people just want the truth, and we can move on after we have the truth, not beforehand.
Wow. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, before I get to Dwight McKee and Josh Feinstein. Wow. You were shaking your head, nodding in assent. Why?
Oh, absolutely. I shared earlier that I served sitting next to a former military sniper. So I can amen everything that Attorney Patillo has cited in terms of what it takes and the expertise and the type of person that it would take to pull off such a shot. The other thing that he mentioned was, what are we going through now? Is history repeating itself? I've shared before with you, Santita, that my belief is that we're in the middle of another post-Reconstruction type era, where back after the Civil War, we had Reconstruction. This is similar to post the modern civil rights movement that culminated in the minds of many with the election of Barack Obama, both those who support and those who oppose. Back in the old days with the Reconstruction, that culminated with Black folks being able to have, and other people of color being able to have more freedom, not total freedom, in terms of economic freedom, in terms of education freedom, political freedom, where they had access, where they were starting to come up, so to speak. That's happening. That happened in the modern days also. And now we're in post-Reconstruction, where the certain people have said people of color are the problem. People of color are the reason that they are doing so badly. They point to the southern border and say, if all these brown folks would just stop coming over here, that we would live better. Our economics would be better. We wouldn't have crime. Our education system would be better. That's the same thing that happened in post-Reconstruction after the Civil War. People of color were blamed for all of the problems that Americans who were, in my own assessment, Americans who couldn't make it without free slave labor. All of a sudden, they had to compete in a real way in what was in essence, a capitalist society that was birthing itself. We're going through that now. Some of these same descendants are saying, hey, if it wasn't for brown people, who Richard Pryor referred to as, this is a PG show, so I'll say he called them the new Negroes back in his day. He used a different word. And we're seeing that play out now. So I'll amen again what Attorney Patillo was saying about how we're going through what we've gone through before as a nation. When it comes to that grassy knoll back with Kennedy versus, I guess in the future we'll be talking about the metal building with the sniper. There will always be questions because we do have a distrust of government. I'm in government. I'm an elected official. I consider my trustworthiness to be very important to my people. They have to be able to trust something. If it wasn't for you, Santita, a lot of this information would not be shared. Some people are getting their information from other sources, and that's all they're doing. I preach that you can't be a one-source researcher any more than you can be a one-issue voter. You've got to be able to use the tools available to you to get a balanced view. That means you got to get as much information as you possibly can get. And at the end of the day, we're the descendants of a stolen people from us who are living in a stolen land, and status quo is status quo for a reason, because somebody is happy with what they're the way they're living and what they're getting out of it.
Tennessee State.
That's the world according to Hardaway.
Look, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway Sr. making your daddy proud. I tell you that. Now, everybody, Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio. Please, everybody, like and share the show. Like and share the show. I'm on Twitter at Santita J. or X at Santita J. Like and share the show. Like and share the show. The Santita Jackson and Friends page. Please like and share the show. The Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Everybody, share the show. Please do it right now. Share it right now. Dwight McKee, what are your thoughts about this?
I'm right where Patillo is. It's This kid has none of the attributes of a sniper and all of the attributes of a patsy. It's very, very interesting. You know, when you look at his personality, when you look his background, look at his history, he is a perfect candidate for a patsy in this situation. And given what a sniper has to be and who a sniper has to be, cool and collected and undaunted, he has no attributes which reflect that. And so it makes you wonder how a kid who was dismissed from rifle school because he shot so bad could make a shot like this under pressure, under duress. It looks to me, Robert, when you see the picture of the bullet going past the president's head, the ex-president's head, that bullet came from the other side because he grabbed his ear after the bullet had passed his head. And so it's very, very, very strange how this thing came together and how you could make a shot like that under pressure, under duress, and almost blow a guy's head off. It's also unbelievable to me. It also seems to me, and I think that you should elaborate on this, Robert, a little bit, is when you're a sniper, when you have an intention to shoot somebody, how methodical you are about the rifle that you choose. You don't just go take a rifle off a chest or out of a closet to make a shot, a once in a lifetime shot like that. And for them to say that he just took his daddy's random rifle, happened to find an open space in an open area that had a direct shot at the president's head.
Wait a minute, Dwight. Hold on. A secured area. Because when you get that close to a protectee of the Secret Service, that area, you can't even approach it.
But that's the strange part, is that this was rather than usually that's how it works. But in this situation, it was an open area and it was unsecured because it was people from everywhere around that little barn. It was people that saw him climb the roof. It was people that was wandering through the neighborhood. It was totally unsecured. And so it was really a book depository waiting to happen. The way that thing was set up, it was set up as a perfect shot, a perfect avenue for assassination. But I also believe it was more than one shooter. And Robert, you may want to elaborate on that.
Well, to Dwight's point, and we'll bring our visual aids back. When you get your rifle, the optic is separate. So this is your optic. Your gun does not come sighted in. Your gun is going to come with iron sights. Those are these, your iron sights. And you line up your front and your back, and then you go to the range, and you do what's called zeroing. You use these to adjust the elevation, and you use these to adjust your left-right pitch. You fire shots 25 yards out until they all line up. When you get your optic or your scope, you also have to go through the process of sighting that optic in at the distance you want to be shooting at. So if you're going to be shooting a target 200 yards away, you take this in your optic and you sight it in and you start hitting it 200 yards until the spot you make on the paper matches into your optic. It is impossible and beyond implausible that you just picked up a random AR and just went out and started shooting from 200 yards away, and just happened to have a, as we mentioned in the first hour, in order for that bullet to go where they say it went, given the amount of bullet drop you're going to get with that at that range, and the amount of wind that you had to be aiming dead center in the middle of their forehead and fire a perfect shot. And then the bullet drop in the wind calculation and his head turning would have been the reason that it just barely grazed him and killed somebody else. This is from a 20-year-old who's supposed to be mentally ill and crazy, with a off-the-shelf rifle, who got kicked off of their school's marksmanship team. And let's put it this way: the shot was to the point that the military snipers firing back, and he was able to get 5 shots off before they were able to shoot back. So you mean that this kid was out shooting Secret Service level snipers in both his accuracy and his speed? Doesn't seem to make sense, not to mention the fact that he brought the wrong weapon with him to do that shooting. If you're going to, for the gun owners or hunters out there who are listening, if you're making this shot, you're going to use a 6.5 Creedmoor, you're going to use a 308, you're going to use something on the AR-10 platform, which is a bigger version. That's one of those downstairs, but don't fit here for the visual aid. But the idea is, if you're shooting in, let's say, a 6.5 Creedmoor, the bullet is, instead of being 5.56 millimeters like the AR-15, it's a 6.5 millimeter projectile. Instead of being 55 grains, you're closer to 80 grains. And you're also, the amount of black powder you have is about double. So that bullet is coming straight, it is coming fast, it's cutting directly through the wind, and it's getting there before the sound even gets there. There's no reaction time as you make the shot. Any deer hunter understands that. So I think people have very valid questions about this shooter and about this narrative coming out. And then to the Secret Service response, and I think this is a important point that Dwight brought up. All of us have worked on presidential campaigns for the most part. I used to do advanced work for the Edwards campaign. And when they would, back in 2004, and then when they would come, they identify every causeway that could be a potential location, particularly high ground, after the assassination of President Kennedy. They also have all the protocols in place for how to get the protectee off the stage. They don't let you wait to put your shoes on. You don't get to say, hold on, let me get my shoes. Also, they don't let you fix your hair prior to pulling you off the stage. And they don't let you jump up and put a fist in the air and start pumping your fist. The reason being, you don't know that that was the only shooter. So while you're pumping your fist, the shooter on the other side gets a clean shot at you. Think about what happened to...
At your heart.
I push people back to the lead up to World War I. Archduke Ferdinand was the victim of an assassination attempt, and they tried to blow up the car. They turned the corner. They start getting away. They have to stop. Just so happens they stopped right in front of the other assassin team, and that's where he got shot. People forget this. So there was a first assassination attempt. They sped off, they get away, and there was a second assassin. This is why you don't allow the protectee to jump up in the air and start waving his fist and pumping his fist. One, you don't know if that first sniper has been neutralized, and you just gave him a second bite of the apple. Secondly, you don't know if there's a second sniper on the other side or even someone else holding a gun. Tertiarily, we just saw an open coup from the people inside the White House against President Biden. You don't know if that Secret Service detail is in on it. You don't know anything at this point in time. Yeah.
Hold on, wait a minute. You got to go back because magically when you got to that sweet spot, we froze. But go on. yeah, I said it.
It's hey, I'm just saying that if you go back to Caesar, it was et tu Brutus. It was beware the Ides of March. It was his friends in the Senate. And as you're under fire, this idea that you're pumping your fist at the crowd and getting out there when you don't know where the threats are coming from, the Secret Service doesn't allow you to do that. They grab you and they carry you away. They shield you with their bodies.
Put a pin in that. Put a pin in that, because to your point, someone asked in the last hour, does the Secret Service have the power to overpower you physically? Yes, and they have the authority to do so.
Yes.
You sign papers on this. It is a legally binding contract that you have with the Secret Service, and they have rules that you've got to observe. And because
Well,
I know, because we made a lot of them after Reverend ran, because they had to come up with a whole new way of protecting a candidate who was so popular with people, and Reverend was not going to let the Secret Service stand in between him and people. Robert, you remember that? So
absolutely.
Reverend would go into a crowd, which drove them crazy because they were accustomed to very, very controlled venues. They were not accustomed to people who were crying, screaming, testing them, because we had to stop. We would have to get to venues early because the Fruit of Islam would not let the Secret Service in to do their security sweeps, because they said, we don't trust you. So we would have to get to the venues early to say, no, we got to let them in. They would be like, okay, well, we're going to shadow them. They had never dealt with that before.
Well,
So,
to your
And Santita, could we also ask Robert to expound on what the dangers are if you have an uncooperative subject, what the dangers are to the Secret Service agents and to the public?
every millisecond that is delayed in an active shooter situation, and this doesn't have to be presidential, this is any active shooter situation, you are placing every single individual at risk. And when you're talking about the Secret Service agents who are trying to protect the president, they are now turned and facing the fire, facing fire. So while you're trying to put your shoes on, these people can get shot in the back of the head and killed.
Thank you.
And at that moment, you have no idea. While you're pumping your fist in the air, your entire Secret Service detail can be taken out by that sniper. And the AR-15, even in semi-automatic, you can get off 30 rounds inside of in less than 30 seconds. If you're not really aiming that much, I've gotten off 30 rounds in 20 seconds. So you can get more than a round off per second. So if you are just spraying and praying, let's say the Las Vegas shooter, for example, with a bump stock, and they're just spraying ammo out there instead of aiming, you could have killed all those Secret Service agents and who knows how many in the crowd while you're dragging the president off stage while he's trying to do a photo op. At the same time, I think most of us have been to block parties, house parties, anything else. When the shooting starts, people flee. I mean, people take off. People don't really hang around. And the fact that you had this crowd where there was no contingency to get them out of there, was no contingency to immediately evacuate, and now these people are jumping up and clapping and cheering this individual when you have no idea what else is going on, has to be the biggest security failure of the entire event. For all you know, there are secondary assassins out there with bombs. And while y'all are jumping up, clapping for him, pumping his fist, they are setting off explosives. They're bringing out additional firearms. They're killing other people. I know the MAGA movement is turning this into this triumphant moment of a victorious president raising his fist, blood running down his face with a flag over his head. The entire thing is the stupidest, most irresponsible set of circumstances. If we take the entire narrative that's being given at face value, everyone needs to be fired, including the candidate, for not understanding the danger he put his followers in and the dangers he put those Secret Service people in. And 3 people were killed. Or 1 person was killed, 2 people are in critical condition. The shooter was killed while you're pumping your fist in the air saying, you didn't get me, but forget this poor sap who just got his brains blown out in front of his kids. I mean, this is a security failure, if you take the official narrative, of unprecedented proportions. And if you don't take the narrative at its base, we're dealing with a national security issue where we have where we're looking at a situation where we could have a string of political assassinations that would change this nation forever going forward. And we need to be more responsible when it comes to celebrating somebody for doing something stupid, which is what President Trump did, and turning this into some kind of a triumphant occasion where 50 Cent is putting his music over Trump pictures, talking about, man, he's the real homie because he survived. Other people died, and they could have killed dozens of other people because of his actions in trying to get a photo op.
And as you talk about this
Stupid
historical
and
moment,
selfish.
well, there's something because now at the same time you have these 2 leading figures in American life who are calling for the same thing. We must unify, not to mention the fact that another parallel that you made to 1968 was that when Kennedy was killed, there was a whole rash of political assassinations. of leading figures at that time. We're seeing that right now. Either their attempt, we saw Abe, we saw this European leader who was just almost killed as prime minister. There's a lot going on right now as we're watching the economies realign. The BRICS nations just said, we're not going to have fiat money. We're going on the gold standard. That's going to fundamentally change how Americans live. I mean, there's a lot going on here. And then you have the president and the former president. The former president's throwing out his speech. He said, I'm going to call for unity. The present president is saying, I'm calling for unity. As you said, Attorney Patillo, around what, 2025? Because, I mean, both of y'all have inclinations to the right. Yeah. I mean, let us not, you know, I mean, we need to ask, what you asking us to unify around? Now, mind you, as someone who lived with the threat of assassination every day, Josh, I'm feeling some kind of way about this anyway. Tennessee State Representative D.A. Hardaway, you know, because you would help coordinate security for Reverend. So I feel for Trump's family, former President Trump. I feel for the gentleman the firefighter who threw his body over his wife and children and who was killed. Let us not forget somebody, I mean, a father and a husband was lost. But in these situations, these things happen. And that's what's so awful. Robert, you were about to say?
The guy who got shot, they kind of pulled his Twitter. And there was a video of a bunch of Palestinian children dying in rubble, and he commented under it, they'll probably be okay. Then there was another very serious of racist statements that he's made. He was very much a MAGA through and through when it comes to many issues. So while I do not say that we have to honor the dead and not speak ill of those who have passed, I do think we should put into context that we look at his Twitter.
You're not speaking ill of him. What you're doing is reporting
and context.
You're giving him context, which does not mean that you feel that he deserved to die. Look, I'm not a professed Christian. I'm a practicing one. So I'm never going to sign up for retribution and revenge and all of that. I let God take care of all of that. God takes care of God's business. It's tough part of Christianity, but that's the real part. But to contextualize him is very important. Well, hold on, Josh. You came on in. You're coming off a vacation because everybody else wants to jump on in. But so your thoughts? Because you are. Yeah. I mean, because y'all tried to get your governor up in Michigan. They tried to, even though we found out that was the FBI doing that, trying to get her. That was crazy. This is all crazy. So talk to me. Your reaction.
But unsurprising that we are here. So,
that's what happened.
Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Great. So first, I mean, Attorney Robert Patillo, excellent analysis, the mechanics of what happened. I mean, in terms of the questions that people have and what went down. But where my mind is at is on three things. One, I am not surprised that we are here. And I think none of us are surprised that the discourse with the way things have been going, that we're in, quote, this moment. In terms of where my head goes to is the idea of, as usual, what does it mean and what can we actually affect? What do we have the ability to affect in terms of change? So I keep on going back to, okay, for those of us who are progressives, what does this mean? Not to be cold-hearted, but what does this mean for the election on the top of the ticket? And the election at the top of the ticket, if one is a Democrat or a progressive, and we saw that very clearly, respectfully. I've always been saying, step aside, Joe. That's where my head's always been at. Many people say abandon Biden. I think when you look in context of, there's clear evidence that Biden should be stepping aside, should have stepped aside. Now you have the idea where, and I do know I have communication with Matt, with some MAGA people, and I've seen on their threads, they're like, this is my God. This base is now fired up. I mean, if they weren't fired up before, the MAGA base is really fired up. So if you're looking to actually fired up in, like, this is like you said, that they're putting out the images, our indestructible hero.
It's a unifying moment and a moment where you're going to get more and more supporters, you think?
It's a moment for them.
Yes. See that again? You captured it well.
It's a religious moment for them. I have people on my timeline putting up pictures of Trump with Jesus shielding him, literally, from the bullet. They believe this is divine intervention.
So if one is focused at the top of the ticket of which octogenarian or potential octogenarian will be in White House, and you want to actually have the Democrats win, the Biden should have been replaced some time ago, because now not only do you have the question about is Biden cogent, solvent, but now he's running against Jesus, essentially. And I don't mean to take the name in vain, but to Rapatillo's thing is, there's almost now a mythical religious part. So if I were the Democrats right now, I would get into a room and saying, look, we need to actually put that transition plan in place, whether it's Kamala or Gavin Newsom or someone else. We need to work on how to actually get that other person in place, because not only is Biden spoiled goods, Trump essentially, whether this thing was fabricated or not, this event has more or less assured his victory. So that's where my head's at in a much more practical sense. I hope that makes sense of where I'm coming from.
That's a whole lot. Dwight McKee? Dwight, you have to come off mute. Okay.
I totally agree with Josh. And I think this closed the deal for Trump. He couldn't have played it any better, even though it was foolish. In terms of security risk, he played it like a central casting, and he's going to benefit. Those pictures all the pictures of his mug shots are going to be replaced by this picture of him with his fist up and the blood coming down, streaming down his face. I think that the election is effectively over. But I think that we really need to put a lot of time in trying to figure out how this happened and who's really behind this.
Why?
Because it has such long-range implications. And I think it's way beyond the politics of the moment. I think it has something to do with NAFTA, and I think this is more at the international level. Mm-hmm. These kind of snipers are trained internationally. They do this for a living.
And you say, because as we're finding out about the JFK assassination and motivations, we're seeing a lot of people. They tried to initially, of course, as they do. He liked Black people. That's why he was killed. No. It was a little deeper than that. It was a Federal Reserve. It was nuclear weapons. He and Israel were in a fight. There was just a lot. He was in a fight also domestically, no question about it. There were so many different. Do you remember that June 1963 speech at American University, Robert Patillo, where he said, there are these secret societies controlling us, and I'm going to expose you. He was gone in a few months.
Well, remember also just before JFK with Eisenhower, the minute he started criticizing the military-industrial complex, he randomly had a heart attack and almost died. We see that President Biden started criticizing Israel, and then next thing you know, there's a coup that tries to overthrow him. I think to Dwight's point, we can't take the surface level conversation and narrative because it doesn't make any sense. And the people trying to tell you that it makes sense, I think all of us have been lied to by those exact same people before. I was a freshman in college when I saw Colin Powell talk about yellow cake uranium. That forever made me distrust the United States government because of the 20-year war that it led to. And on this international front, remember, we have no shortage of enemies that would love to see both Donald Trump and Joe Biden dead. We just had the assassination of the Iranian president Raisi in a mysterious helicopter crash. We've seen European elected officials. There was an attempted assassination of the prime minister of one of the European countries. Vladimir Putin is well known to assassinate pretty much anybody that he has the opportunity to get a hold of. Netanyahu is currently very upset with the president of the United the current president of the United States over holding up weapons deliveries to Israel. We have no shortage of people who have every motive, every opportunity. We have these online communities where it's easier than ever to recruit mercenaries and dissidents. And as has been said, the American people have every reason to distrust this narrative. And the things that I'm going to be looking forward to in the next couple weeks, I'm going to be monitoring President Trump's ear, for example, because cartilage doesn't grow back.
Because hold on, because Don Arthur wants to know, what does a wound from an AR-15 look like?
So this depends. This depends on the type of ammunition. So this bullet is a solid tip lead point. They also, however, have hollow point bullets. So if it's a hollow point, that one, when it makes contact with the skin, is going to mushroom out and would have taken the entire ear off.
But you also mentioned busting the eardrum.
Yeah. The sonic boom from that bullet going by, regardless of the bullet, would have exploded his eardrum if it's going by that fast. This is why
that would be painful, right? And you would see someone.
Yeah, that would be. Remember, your eardrum in your inner ear controls your balance, the fluid in your inner ear. So he would have been disoriented, woozy. He probably wouldn't have been able to walk without assistance. This is why when you go to the shooting range, the first thing they say is eyes and ears, eyes and ears. You need to have eye protection and ear protection to protect your ears from bullets whizzing by you. So if something goes by that close, one, the inner ear is probably going to pop because of the change in pressure from that pressure wave going by. Secondarily, if it makes contact with the top of your ear, if it's a hollow point, it's more than likely going to take the entire ear off. If it's a solid lead projectile, then the chunk that comes off is going to be going to look almost like a knife cutting through that because of the speed that you're going, and it's going to take off a piece of the cartilage, which doesn't grow back. So once you're of age, your cartilage doesn't grow back. That's why when you get a knee replacement, they have to put stem cells or something along those lines or titanium in your knee because that area just simply doesn't regenerate itself. So if President Trump comes back with 2 completely functional ears in 6 weeks, I think people are going to have real questions about, well, is he a chameleon? Is he some kind of lizard that could grow back those pieces? Or are there questions about the veracity of the story? There's some other accounts that say that the bullet made contact with a teleprompter and then a piece of glass is what actually flew over and may have made contact with his ear, which explains the angle the angle disparity. But then you're dealing with the situation of, well, if there's a shards of glass that cut his ear, why are there no other contact places on his face, on his neck? He was out playing golf the very next day at Bedminster after this shooting took place. So there should be questions about, well, what exactly happened to the rest of the glass? Was anybody else hit by it? There are a litany of questions and every motivation for the Trump team to fake this. Not saying that it's fake, before you guys put me on a t-shirt. But there's every motivation for exactly what Josh and Dwight just said, that it would effectively end the election by making him this cult-like Teflon Don immortal figure, unless people find out that it was a hoax, in which case the election is over in the other direction for Biden and will be the biggest scandal in American political history. This is why I'm not willing to say the election is over, because 2 weeks ago, we would have thought that President Biden was stepping down from office and the election was over that way. Now political dynamics change on a dime. And for the people who are saying, well, let's just give up, go home and start planning for 2025, I remind them that the march of time is eternal and we cannot control interceding events, and things can change almost instantly in American politics, and that's the place we're at currently.
Well, I only have a few minutes left here, but everybody, we're going to run long. We're going to, of course, have to abbreviate the show for AM 950 radio to sign off there. But if you want to see more of this conversation, we're going to continue for a few more minutes beyond the end of the actual broadcast. And so stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and on X at Santita J, and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, because where else will you find a panel like this with Josh Feinstein, Attorney Robert Patillo, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, and Dwight McKee, really asking the probing questions that we're not hearing in corporate media. And we need to ask these questions because now Representative Hardaway essentially you're having the president and the former president who are saying we're going to call for the same thing over the next few days. Unity.
Yeah, and my question is, what does it look like? Because what is it based on? Unity around what? And I dare say that my idea of the principles that we would unify around are different from what former President Trump would unify around. My belief is that he does know what the 2025 project is.
Well, Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
Well, I actually think they tried to take Trump out, because they've tried everything they could to take him out, and nothing worked. They had a real strategy going, they thought, to the Supreme Court ambushed that. And so they had no other options but to take him out. And the fact that he survived it is only going to elevate his status and make him more of a hero because he survived it. My question would be, who wants him out and why do they want him out? And that's why I say this is bigger than this. I think it's bigger than this election. I think it probably has something to do with NAFTA. I think it has something to do with Trump talking about de-weaponizing the Ukraine and cutting the deal with Russia against China. I think this is real big time showing off international long range politics. And I think Trump is trying to dismantle the dark state. And I think he's really trying to do that. And I think they got an answer for it. And this, you all, may not be over. This may not be the first attempt at taking him out, because now it looks like he's going to absolutely win. And again, this is for all the marbles, because he says if he does win, he's coming after the guys that came after him. And so they have more at stake now than they had before. I think this may be a precursor to some Putin poison, or however they decide to do this.
He's alliterative, and my goodness. But I got 1 minute left while we're still on the air here. Attorney Robert Patillo.
Well, I'm gonna pass it to Josh because I know he has to go.
Okay, Attorney. Josh Feinstein. And how can we get in touch with you, Josh? Because you have a new organization.
Yes, Joshua.Feinstein@JewsandAlliesMI.org. That's Joshua.Feinstein@JewsandAlliesMI.org. The MI is from Michigan. Real quick, my thought is very practical. I think if you're part of the Democratic Party, it's Monday morning. Get into a room with a whiteboard, throw everything out, start from scratch. You're starting from ground zero or from the beginning. Figure out what is our election plan. We've got how many days till the election? Who should our candidate be? Because our current candidate is not going to win. Who is the highest percentage right now? Because certainly isn't Biden. That's what I would do if I was in the Democratic, as part of the Democratic machine. That's my thought. I've got to run. It's so good to see everyone.
So
it's
glad
really good
you're
to be back.
back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad my brother's back.
Take care, Josh.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Well, hey,
Take care,
everybody.
sir.
Hey, AM 950 Radio sending you much love. But if you want to hear the rest of this conversation, stay right here on Twitter, on X, @Santita J, the Santita Jackson and Friends YouTube channel, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, Santita Jackson Show. Everybody like and share. Please like and share. Like and share. And the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Please like and share. People really stirred up by this conversation today. And they're struck by the information that you're giving us, Robert Patillo. They're struck. And Ashley King from a fellow Memphian is sending much love to you, State Representative Hardaway. But they're all in agreement with all of you because you're questioning. Robert.
So now that we're all off AM, this is a point that I want to make, but I thought it might be better for the internet. That if you are a shooter, whether you're hunting or if you're sniping, you're taught to aim center mass because that's the biggest area of an individual. It's a lot harder to hit a head that is this size. I have a big head, so say your head's the size of a beach ball or volleyball, basketball. It's a smaller target than your torso. So if you're going to be aiming and you want to kill somebody or an animal or anything else, you aim center mass because you have a bigger location. And so if you are aiming directly for the center of someone's chest and you hit their lungs, you probably still kill them. If they moved, and also while you're speaking, if you're dealing with a target, Trump gesticulates. He moves left and right, up and down. He's like a toddler throwing a tantrum during his speeches. It's hard to get a bead on directly on their head. And as we saw, his head moved versus his torso where he has his hands on the podium. You're going to get a very clear shot and a pretty easy shot on a very large area to potentially kill him if that is your goal. The only reason that you would aim for the head is if you're trying to make a point. The only reason you aim for the head is because you want a visual that goes out on live television of his head exploding or of a bullet going directly through it, as we saw with JFK, and taking off the back of it for all the world to see. The only reason that at that distance and given those conditions that you're going to try to have a headshot is you're trying to send a very direct and clear political message. You're not just trying to kill him. You're trying to send a message to the nation about his death. So there's no questions involved. We've seen historically, Teddy Roosevelt was shot in the chest, for example, because they wanted to kill him. He just happened to have a speech in his pocket that was able to absorb the bullet, and that's why he wasn't one of our illustrious assassinated presidents. So when we're looking at the profile of this shooter, and we're looking at the story we're being told about a disaffected 20-year-old who's a registered Republican but gave $15 to a progressive cause. I don't know many 20-year-olds that give a lot of money to political causes. And then he's wearing army fatigues and then a Demolition Ranch t-shirt. Demolition Ranch is a YouTube channel dedicated to guns and MAGA. I've subscribed to the channel. It's a great channel. They have tanks and sniper rifles and machine guns, all those sorts of things. But he very clearly was dressed in such a way to indicate that he was a Trump supporter because that's whoever put him there, as Dwight will say, as the patsy, wanted to sow that level of confusion. So we're going to need a real investigation into this. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of videos on YouTube already starting to break this down from different conspiracy points of view and different perspectives. But I want to see how President Biden will handle this. Will we still stick with this narrative that nobody believes, or will we get some actual information that digs down deeper into the real motives behind it, the real people behind it, and whether or not this is an ongoing threat? Because it's not as if this is an isolated incident. We had the attempted coup against President Biden, shooting of Steve Scalise, shooting of Gabby Giffords. This has been very much as we saw in the 1960s, a series of assassination attempts and political violence taking place that is very much infecting our body politics currently. And we need to get to the bottom of it, because if you don't, it doesn't matter who you elect president. If you have mysterious donors and special interest and insiders and sources who can either call on the president to resign, or on the other hand, if you have another presidential candidate who can be killed at the drop of a hat, we need to find out who the hell's running this country and figure out if we agree with the people who are taking us in that direction.
Indeed, people have been asking that question since the debate. They said, it's clear that our elective officials, because when you see Senator Strom Thurmond, when you see Senator Dianne Feinstein, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway Sr., it's clear, with Dianne Feinstein, everyone knew that she was transitioning. Everyone knew it. And anyone who knows anything about politics and elective office, that really, and the bigger the figure, the more true this is. It's the chief of staff who's the king and queen on the hill, and in the state capitol, because they're the gatekeepers. Anyone's chief of staff, anyone who has influence, who has a chief of staff, that person is powerful, because they are the gatekeepers, and they also manage the staff, and they determine who stays. And this is how we're going to say this. People, you wait before you say that a public figure has passed so that you can get the story right, right? And then then you make the announcement. I mean, because that's why, when Queen Elizabeth died, and they had a whole plan for the announcement, because you died, but then we
Mhm.
got to get things in order, and that's just the way it works, right? But talk to me about where we are, because we're now seeing how I keep saying, I said it last week, how the sausage is made, Representative Hardaway, and it's not that cute. Now you got, whatever you feel about Biden, he got 14 million votes, but now George Clooney, Stephen Colbert, and some Hollywood types and the donors can say, I'm not giving you any more money, so you got to go.
Yeah, that's insulting to the intelligence of each and every voter, not just those who voted for Biden, but those who are, in terms of the primary, but those who are going to vote in the general. That includes Democrats, that includes independents, and to some degree, some of the small R's or Republicans who just can't stand the agenda and the candidate that's on the Republican ticket. But I also want to make note to Attorney Patillo, you were running down a list, and one thing that we haven't mentioned is the vice president on the verge of being lynched on January 6th. So we're going through some things that remind us of the 1950s, 1960s, and we've got the same players. We've got the same folks who want power, and they're willing to take it no matter what the cost, and then come back and reconstruct what's left into Reconstruction. We're going to have to talk history when I'm on here, Santita, because I believe that we're in the middle of post-Reconstruction right now.
Why is it that? Well, let me ask you this before you jump in. When you jump in, Robert, because my question is more general. Robert.
On that point, this is we made this point on radio yesterday on my show, which is the timing of this is not accidental. The timing of this is not accidental, because you're coming out of the Biden coup, where Biden is weakened more than at any point in his presidency, where the eyes of March have closed in on him, and it very much looks like he will not be winning re-election, and whoever the Republican nominee would be will be able to win re-election. But also, we're before the convention, and Donald Trump has not announced his vice president. Why is that significant? Well, that means that if Donald Trump hasn't announced a vice president, if he mysteriously passes away for any reason, the party bosses now get to go to Milwaukee and select who will be the Republican nominee. That means that you now get to go past the entire primary process, in truth, past the general election process, because whoever the Republican nominee is would have the sympathy of the assassination of President Trump as their backing, and then put the person that you actually want to be the Republican nominee ostensibly as a free pass to be president. There is no heir apparent to Trump. You can't say he will pass it to Nikki Haley. You can't say he will pass it to Mike Pence. There's no clear heir apparent to Trump. And so if you're dealing with a place where Biden is at an all-time weak position, where it looks like he has no chance of winning, and you take out Trump, now the Republican Party bosses can put their own candidate in place, because it's prior to the convention. You go into the convention mourning Trump, you spend 2 days of crying, and then you coronate who will be the new Republican nominee coming out of the convention, and they will just ride the way to a landslide victory, and it doesn't matter who you insert there. All they would have to do is run on the memory of President Trump, and we can pretend that that's just a coincidence, but President Trump does a rally every couple days, and this never happened. It was only after Biden was weakened by the petty coup and before the announcement of the new vice presidential nominee that just happened to slot in there just conveniently and perfectly. But I'm sure it was a 20-year-old who was sad, and that's why it happened.
Dwight McKee?
The question is?
The question is, where do you think they're going with with all of the talk of unity? Because now we're seeing, Attorney Robert Patillo, you make the point, on the Democratic and Republican side, you have two massively unpopular nominees.
Well, Biden
Who
is
the,
totally
wait a minute,
neutral.
excuse me, one moment, who the party bosses would like to replace.
Well, Biden is totally neutralized on the issues now because their whole strategy was to paint Trump as the Antichrist, as a fascist, as somebody who's going to take over the state and be a threat to democracy. Now they're afraid to make that argument because they feel like it looks like they're piling on and they're out of sorts with the times. And so whatever they stop running commercials because whatever they say now make them look like the bad guys who are not looking for unity of spirit in an American compromise. So unless they come up with a new candidate, all the Biden's arguments are off the table, and they can't even go to the now that Trump has Supreme Court immunity, they can't even go to the argument of convicted felon and all of that. All that is kind of out of the way. So I think you could almost safely be assured that Trump or whoever is, if something happens to him, who's ever his second guy, is going to be in charge of the government. Now, the Heritage Foundation seems to have the strategy behind all of this. And they've had this strategy going about 50 years. That's how they could redo the country and turn this into a Christian state. And it looks like they have all the momentum and all of the power to turn their dreams into reality. I mean, I think they've gone as far as to pick the replacements for the government that they want already in place for. And I think unless Trump resists that, which would put him in jeopardy, I think he's probably going to fall hand in hand with whatever that represents, whatever that means. And so this will become a Christian fascist state. And it won't be a lot we can do about it. We can fight. But we're fighting against a machine that has no consequences, who has the license to do to whomever and whatever they want, whatever they will to maintain power. And so you're going to see a complete redo of America and what America is supposed to represent,
Redo into what?
into a Christian fascist state.
What does that look like?
It looks like Iran without the cross. Looks like Iraq without the cross.
So what does that mean for women's rights? What does that mean for education? What does that mean for economic opportunity?
The same thing it means in Iran and Iraq. You see it becomes a religious state, and it'll be governed by biblical principles, the interpretation of biblical principles.
Wait a minute. As the Baptist, the white Baptist convention is saying women shouldn't serve as pastors. I mean, they're stepping back. Not that they were forward, but wow. I mean, what you're saying is quite loaded.
Mm-hmm. It would be like the speech that the football player made last week when he said women really need to go back to the 1950s, 1960s and be honored to have babies and to cook the meals and to iron the clothes. And when they talk about Make America Great Again, for many people, that's the America they remember and understand it to be.
State Representative Hardaway?
Yes, ma'am. I think he's right in one sense. That Make America Great Again is make America great for those who had the power, those who were living in what was essentially an apartheid state, where it didn't matter where they lived, Didn't matter what the majority wanted. There was a minority that controlled the economic and political strength of the community. We've seen that in areas of the United States, and I dare say, if you sit back and let former President Trump be reelected, the United States of America will be an apartheid state where the minority will control the wealth and the economics of America. They will control the politics of America, and thus the government. It will be no different than another South Africa that will exist in North America, in the United States in particular. I'll push back on whether this election is over. I would say, as a former and really a recovering political operative, that at the end of the day, it depends on how agile you are in your campaign strategies. If the Biden administration is able to seize and direct the narrative at this point and focus on some of the issues which are going to drive the voters to the polls, and that's, if you want to know what the real impact is for Trump, I don't think he's pulling new people in and persuading them to vote for him. I think it's the impetus now is to drive his fanatics to the polls and let that be the difference. So those folks who just weren't sure if they want to ride that train again or get out and make that effort, they're going now. And we have to make the case that they are going, and what the results will be if they go, and if you have another 4 years of Donald Trump or whomever the surrogate may be, that it will be a reversal of fortune for us, for our children, in terms of educational opportunities, in terms of economic opportunities, in terms of basic civil rights, voting rights. We're rolling the clock back. The generation behind us will be the first to have fewer rights, be less free than their parents.
But that's what most of these white people want, Congressman, is that Donald Trump and Archie Bunker from the same place and same town.
Queen.
And so what Archie Bunker got a song say, boy, the way Mitch Miller played whatever happens to the parade, guys like us, we had it made. Those was the days.
Didn't need no welfare state.
Didn't need no welfare. That's right. Everybody pulled his weight. Is that they're looking for that day when they were in charge and they control everything, and we were was a labor force at their beck and call. That's when they talk about the mega, when they talk about going back to the good old days, that's what they have in mind.
Well, what does unity look like, Robert? Because
Well,
you have both of the president and the man who would be president once again. They're both. He said, "I've thrown my speech out. I've got to have another message." You've got a lot of Republican operatives and corporate media on television and on radio this morning saying, "Hey, he has an opportunity to bring the nation together, to be a different kind of guy." What does that mean?
well, if you go to Amazon right now, I want people to do this who are listening, and click the search box. You'll see a drop down that shows you all the things that are trending right now on Amazon, all the things that have been selling like hotcakes on Amazon, the things that people are searching for. Number one item, Trump shirts. Number two, MAGA hat. Number three, Trump hat. Number four, Trump flag. Number five, Trump 2024 flag. Number six, Trump merchandise. Number seven, Amazon Prime Day that starts tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So before you even get to Amazon Prime Day, one of the biggest sales day, the summer Black Friday, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different Trump items that are trending before that. And then number 8 is soap. So you have 8 Trump items trending above soap. There are more people trying to buy MAGA hats than are trying to wash their ass in this country. This is a play.
Oh Lord, help me.
Mm.
What?
This is the reality of America. If you don't believe me, go to Amazon.com and click in the box and see what you see. There are literally 8 different Trump items before taking a bath. That is the priorities that people have in this country. They are more dedicated to Trump than they are to hygiene. We've had this man elevated to the point of being a deity. Now, you have rappers talking about Trump is officially black because they locked him up, they persecuted him, and he survived the shooting. You have Latinos for Trump out there at the convention this week. People forget that some of the speakers that are lined up for the Republican convention are Amber Rose, founder of the Slut Walk. Trump supporters such as Sexy Red of the hit song "My Coochie Pink, My Booty Hole Brown." That is her song. That is her hit. That is the Trump supporter that will be in the same building with Mike Johnson and Christian conservatives. 50 Cent, who has a drug dealer multiverse on Stars with Power, Book of Cain. He literally has created a drug dealing multiverse on television. He's a Trump supporter. Waka Flocka Flame, the rapper who claims he's 100% Cherokee and not black, is a Trump supporter. His song saying, "I don't need no black B-word. B-word, I'm black already," is also now supporting Trump. So for the Democrats who say, hey, this is ephemeral, this doesn't matter, these people aren't going to vote, I say that you should probably pay more attention to this, particularly now that he has ascended to divinity. And when we're looking at the November election, I think, as State Representative Hardaway said, I don't think it's a fait accompli yet, but I think it's going to take an active Joe Biden, an active president who can look and diagnose. Between now and November is a lifetime in politics. And if you look at the Supreme Court decisions that have happened, if you look at the gridlock in Congress, when there's a power vacuum, the executive now gets to absorb that. So if I'm Joe Biden, what I'm doing is I'm letting all this smoke clear. I'm getting through the Democratic convention. I'm just trying to fundraise and get through to Labor Day. Then after Labor Day, I'm having a press conference Monday morning, and I'm signing an executive order on camera on one big ticket progressive issue. Tuesday morning, I'm having a press conference. I'm signing a executive order on a big ticket progressive issue. And I'm doing this all the way from Labor Day through Election Day. And I'm daring Republicans to go to court to fight against it. I'm daring the court system to try to repeal it. I'm daring the national media not to pay attention to it. Because if you do things such as permanently suspending student loans, that gets around the Supreme Court decision on student loans, permanently suspending it and saying, as long as I'm president, no American will be paying a penny for student loans, that's going to start getting attention. As you say, I'm bringing into the White House and creating a National Advisory Board on reparations. I'm creating a reparations czar out of the West Wing to create binding recommendations on how to implement them. And as president, I make a promise and guarantee that in my second term, reparations will be the first thing that I handle. That's something that's going to get people's attention. As you say that I'm putting forward an executive order on voting rights that will be in place for the November election. I'm putting in place an executive order on criminal justice reform that will be in place before the November election. I'm granting amnesty to all 10 million undocumented people who are in this country, allowing them to come out of the shadows and work and be part of the great American society. They would say I'm providing federal protections for women's rights, and that if any state tries to interfere with the rights of women to seek reproductive care, I will send the National Guard in to escort them in and to escort them out, the same way they did Ruby Bridges and the other students integrating schools. And we say I'm putting in place an executive order for all our military veterans for a peace dividend. We spent $2 trillion a year for 20 years fighting the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. So every military veteran who served during that time will receive a check right now. It's already in your bank account that's been deposited by the Department of Justice as a peace dividend for the work that you put in. And if you're unfortunate that person is deceased, that money goes directly to their family to end this homeless veteran crisis. I'm also going to be investing money to build barracks around the country on every military base to house any homeless veteran and get them off the street so they can get the treatment they need and live in dignity for what they've done previously. I think if you do that, you can still win this election. The question is, are there people in Biden's ear that can make that argument, that can have that conversation and understand that the Supreme Court is now giving you this power, so you have the opportunity to do it. And if the Republicans decide to attack it in court, go for it. That is the exact election issue we need to be running on, the fact that these people are trying to take back these rights that I've just given the American people. Do they have enough sense in the White House to do that? Absolutely not. But hopefully someone can get to them to explain exactly those issues to them. Because right now, President Trump is literally going to run on the bloody shirt, almost as a military war veteran fighting for the American people against the deep state. And that's a message that unless they are ready to pivot very quickly and shift to a policy agenda, it's going to be hard to contend with.
Well, I'm wondering how they're going to do that. I mean, because it seems when I look at television and you know this, because you and I have our own shows that we produce. I have this local one that's about to be regionally syndicated once again, really coast to coast, and then a national show. And I know what I'm hearing. It's the Democratic pundits are making no demands.
Mm-hmm.
They only give you explanations, Robert and Representative Hardaway and Dwight McKee, and they give a pass. I'm like, and they tell those who they tell the fighters to shut up and stand down, and guess what? That's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Now, Reverend Jackson, and you know this, you've been with Reverend Jackson since you were in college at Clark, right?
Yep.
Reverend was the one who they never wanted in the meeting, and that's why he and State Representative Hardaway are so close, because he's the same kind of guy. They get thrown out the meetings because they will say, "Well, I know you," and that's why you and Dad are locked at the hip, because he would say, "Wait, what are we doing here? Hold on, wait a minute. You know about that famous meeting that President Biden had after he was elected, where you had all of the top Black leaders there. You know, Reverend wasn't there, but he's in another phase of his life. But they weren't going to invite him anyway. And I'm not mad about it, because people do what they do. You know, I mean, that's one of the things I'm grateful that I got that lesson from him, Dwight McKee and Representative Hardaway. He's like, don't take this personally. Just keep fighting, right? But it was so insulting, because you remember they leaked it to The Intercept, Robert. What happened in that meeting?
They set out an entire Black agenda, but it didn't include the voices or demands of Black people. So essentially, the people who were in that meeting allowed us to be put on the back burner for 4 years. And this is why you get a $1.7 trillion infrastructure bill passed, a $1.5 trillion Inflation Reduction Act. You get a CHIPS and Science Act. You get the American Rescue Plan, all getting passed, but then not even a vote on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Bill. Not even a vote in the Senate on HR 4, the reparations task force. Not even a vote on any of the big ticket items that the African American community wanted, because we have people that will sell us out for a chicken plate, and they're the people who get a seat around the table. And what they want is the same thing Republicans want, which is just an obsequious group. They're very much, I don't see a big difference between President Trump surrounding him with his Black leadership of Wesley Hunt and Byron Donald and Tim Scott, who skin and grin and tap dance, and I think I saw Tim Scott playing the banjo the other day. I don't see much difference between that and the Democrats that President Biden surrounds himself with, who aren't making the actual demands that people in the community are. And I decided that I'm no longer going to be a sharecropper for the Democratic Party a long time ago. That if you want me to carry water, you're going to have to pay me just like you paid the white boys. That if you're paying $538 and all these other consultants millions, if not billions of dollars to run, don't come to me to go do a bunch of volunteer work and get out there risking my neck for you and then ignore me on the other side. And the reason that we're seeing this quote unquote
$14 million out of $1 billion community ad.
Yeah,
$14 million for black media. Are you serious?
and then they think that all they have to do is send Kamala out to do the cha-cha slide and buy some collard greens, and that will be enough to get black folks on board. And then when it got to this summer, and they said, wait a second, I thought y'all had the black folks on board. And they said, no, the black folks aren't responding, because many of us were despondent at the Democratic response during Obama. But Obama got the grace of being Obama. So we would still support him just because of the historical aspects of him, even though we felt that our community wasn't being served. Biden doesn't have that same grace. Biden doesn't have that same buy-in with the black community. Biden very much is still remembered as crime bill Joe Biden in the black community. So he has to come forward with more than just saying, well, look, I put a black woman on the Supreme Court and here's Doug. I put a black woman on as vice president, here's Doug. I put a black woman as press secretary, also here's Doug behind her. Because we very much see these people as being symbolism as opposed to the actual policy that people are demanding. And then we have Trump showing up, surrounded by rappers and Sexy Red and Amber Rose and 50 Cent and Kanye, all those sorts of things. Of course, there's going to be a subset of the community that's going to support that and agree with that. He's a reality star that people have grown up with their entire lives. He projects an image of strength and wealth that many people appeal to, and particularly for Gen Z voters, and this is something the Democrats have failed to understand. They have a different experience with Trump and racism than older generations. If you grew up and you experienced racism directly, you see Trump in one light. You see him as the Central Park 5 version of Trump. But if you grew up if you were born in 2000 and you grew up with Trump as a reality show star, Trump being mentioned in the Nelly videos and all the rap songs in the early 2000s, and you remember him when you're in high school as being the president, sending out free checks to everybody, sending out PPP loans and EIDL loans. Everybody had money. You didn't have to go to work. You didn't have to go to school. You stayed home. He did your mama jokes on the stand. You don't have the same view of Trump that older generations do. And it seems that the Democratic Party has spent more time trying to convince young voters that Trump is racist, as opposed to putting the policies forward that would encourage them to support the Democratic Party, because they feel that if you put forward black policies, you will scare away those last 3 Rust Belt white voters in Ohio who they think are going to come back and save the party. Those voters have been gone for 40 years, and they're never coming back. And instead of investing in that, they have to invest in increasing black, Latino, Sun Belt, Southern voters and shift the political map. Trump has shifted the political map in ways we haven't seen, where he's competitive in New York, New Jersey, New Hampshire, and even Connecticut. The Democrats have not done the same to solidify their base in places in the South where we're seeing increasing minority populations that have to be supported by policy.
So when you hear Democratic pundits, and I want you to weigh in first, Robert, and then you, Dwight, and Representative Hardaway, because I've asked so many people this. When you go to corporate media, the Democratic pundits will say, no black person is going to vote for Trump. I'm like, that is not what I'm hearing in these streets.
Particularly for black men, it's a very strange conversation that has to take place where if you're completely just kind of tabula rasa coming into politics, and you say, well, what exactly is Joe Biden offering black men in this election? And I don't think any of us can think of something off the top of our head that's not completely obtuse. And then when you say, well, what is Trump saying? Trump is saying, I'm going to give you a bunch of money and jobs and a return to masculinity, as it would be. We want to keep all these transgenders out. We want to stop this rainbow flag gay agenda. And we want to make sure that we're concentrating on reestablishing the black man and the family, as Wesley Hunt and Byron Donald like to talk about. And whether that's true or not, given Trump's history and track record and image in black media, that's enough to get 10% of the vote to change. And the reason that's significant is when you're looking at a state like Georgia that came down to 11,000 votes, that's the margin of error in Georgia, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, and Nevada. And Democrats need to understand that and stop outsourcing these things to DC, San Francisco, New York focus groups, and actually talk to some black men about policy and put in some executive orders that will get them motivated to actually vote for you.
Representative Hardaway, what are you seeing? What are you hearing in the barbershops? What are you hearing? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, I apologize. I'm hearing both sides. I think the same way that we can't assume that black folks are monolithic, I think black men come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and trains of thought. There are some black men who are believing the TV version of Trump, and that he's going to make them the same millionaire that he pretended to be, billionaire now that he pretends to be. But I think at the end of the day, we're back to whether we're going to settle with being an uninformed voter, and whether we are going to settle with letting the uninformed voter be the majority of black men, black women, black people. We've got to do a better job, as Attorney Patillo said, of informing our voters. That's the first step to motivating them, and then to activating them is to educate them. So we've got to do a better job, those of us who are in position to do so, of creating an educated voter, a voter who knows that these political strategies are just that, designed to inspire or to deny them the motivation to get to the polls. We've got to do a better job of changing the narrative. We should be talking about the agenda that is for us, and not an add-on at the end of the majority agenda. I'm disappointed, like most informed black folks, that we didn't get more out of the Obama era than we got. But I'm also intelligent enough to know that it's a three-ring circus when we talk about government. And we failed Obama when we did not vote in the elections for Congress. So he was pretty much on an island to where no matter what he wanted to do, the policies are set by the legislative branch. So I would,
state representative, let me just push back just a little bit there, because he would have meetings, and you remember this, Robert Patillo, in the White House with black leaders, not Reverend, because he was banned from the White House, and leading blacks in media. And we were told to, not me, but people in this space were told to stand down. You
just
that?
wait.
No, wait a minute. Not just wait, but stand down and shut up. And so we were saying to him, don't do that, because you're going to be out. You're going to be, I would tell people who had his ear, I'm like, he will be out of office longer than he's going to be in office. This is not good. Let us protest. Let us demonstrate. We can help him help us. And they said, nope, you got to be quiet. That was a huge error. That was a huge miss on his part, because we were suffering out here. And
but the rest of us could have done better. We could have done better in motivating our folks.
But I'm just saying, when Maxine Waters, I remember she had a big town hall meeting in Detroit, and they were about to move her down. She said, no. You told me to shut up. That's what y'all told me to do. Well, what we need, no, you told me to shut up. And now look at what we've got. My mama and daddy have been married. They've been together 63 years, been married 62. She said, I'd never marry someone I can't fight. All 5 feet, no inches of her. She said, look, I am married to someone who I can and will take on. She said, I suggest you do the same thing, not just in your personal life, but in your political life, in your professional life. If you are in over your head, darling, you're in the wrong place. That's what my mama told me. I think she was on to something. I don't know. Dwight McKee, you're back? So when you hear this unity message, and I want you all to speak to that, because Representative Hardaway, we're about to go into this convention, and I want you to project out onto what we should be looking for, because they're going to have more black faces on those. Well, before I get to you, Dwight, they're going to have more black faces prominently featured. They've even popped up and put Tim Scott back on the short list for the vice presidency. Okay, might work, might not work. I don't know. I mean, Representative, what should we be looking for at this convention? As former President Trump has thrown his speech out, he's saying, I'm going to talk about unity. How can he do that?
Is that his question or mine?
Well, you can take it, and then I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because you are.
Again, what we're not talking about is we're dealing with electoral politics.
Mhm.
We're not dealing with popular elections. We're dealing with electoral politics. And so you still have to overcome the mistakes that Biden has made in terms of alienating those marginal votes in Michigan and Wisconsin, where he needs to win.
Okay.
He has still not changed his position. I don't care how many black people he put up there to speak during the convention. He still has not dealt with the issue of Israel, which is where he's most vulnerable in those states that he needs in order to win. He still has not dealt with taking um, a different position on how they're dealing with the migrants,
Mhm.
which is a position that black people are insulted by. That they're coming here getting in even though Trump called them black jobs, black people know what they're talking about. If they're not getting black jobs, they know they're getting black money, money that black people are not getting, and black men are insulted by that. And so, I mean, it's beyond just um, tacit politics right now, in policy right now. There's some major issues that they have not dealt with. So the chaos is going to be one on the inside of the convention, but secondly on the outside of the convention, where you're still going to have hundreds of thousands of people demonstrating against him, and people on the outside saying he ought not be the one to run. And so that's why I say, Patillo, this is a done deal, I think.
But Representative, okay, Patillo, you respond because
Well, as I said, if Biden responds properly, it cannot be a done deal. There's still plenty of time to do so. Have they shown any inclination to do this? Absolutely not. Have they shown any ability to do this? Certainly, they have not done that in the slightest. Have they shown any interest in doing that? No, they haven't. But it still could happen, and I think that this would be the time where when you're seeing this hard rightward shift among Republicans, you're seeing this hard rightward shift in Europe. You have to take the what's going on internationally and see who's winning. Well, Le Pen in France nearly unseated Macron until you saw what? Until you saw Macron, the centrist, unite with the left-wing party in order to win. Look at the UK. The Tories have been in charge for 14 years. From Cameron to Theresa May to Boris Johnson to Liz Truss to Richie Sunak, they've been in charge for 14 years. You saw the rise of their MAGA movement under Nigel Farage with Reform UK, and because of that, Keir Starmer and the Labour Party was able to unite with the Liberal Democrats, the Lib Dems, and also the Greens in order to win. So this should tell Biden, as the centrist in America in politics, similar to Starmer and similar to Macron, you have to unite with the left wing of your party. You have to give your base something to be excited about. We see that there's complete stagnation in Congress. The last big ticket bill that we've seen come out of Congress was Ukraine funding, Israeli funding, etc. that came down earlier this year that nearly cost Mike Johnson his seat when Marjorie Taylor Greene tried to remove him. But because Congress isn't going to act, you have runway. The Supreme Court has said the president has Pharaoh-like abilities to be the king of America, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Can't impeach him, can't indict him, can't arrest him, no civil liability. So, screw it. I say go for it. I think that if I'm the Biden people, I am putting every single left-wing fantasy into an executive order and pushing that out between now and the election day, and frankly being able to run on exactly that. Say that I've invested more money into climate than any other president. I put the National Guard there to support women's rights. I put an executive order in place on reparations, etc. You can put everything there and then dare Republicans to fight back. But I've seen no inclination of them to do that. But hopefully after this last mini coup, the petty coup that just took place, he will understand that he can't trust his advisors, he can't trust the senior staffers, White House sources, Democratic operatives, or donor class, and just take things into his own hand and push an agenda forward that Americans can unite around. That's how you counteract the Trump messaging and narrative and show and spectacle. People respond to checks showing up in their bank account. As president, I would say that, well, we also need to have an inflation stimulus program. I've directed the Department of the Treasury under my executive authority to take away funding from the next generation air dominance fighter, and we're going to send that money in $500 checks to every American making under $50,000 a year. The math works out. And just do it. And then once the checks are out, guess what? They can't take them back at that point. And we'll see how that affects the election. But politics is about momentum. It's about getting the ball rolling. Once you start picking up steam, it's hard to stop it. And the only thing that can stop it is once you have somebody who has momentum like Trump has right now, is when a unstoppable force hits an immovable object. And you have to be able to stop that with actual legislation, actual action. It's going to take more than talk at this point.
Well, I mean, Representative Hardaway, what can be done in this moment? I mean, because we've got this Republican convention coming, and you're going to see more Black faces, giving, quite frankly, a socially conservative message that many Black people on a certain level do agree with, right? We have to be honest about that. What is the counter argument? I mean, what is the strategy?
Well, I think Attorney Patillo made some cogent points. It's not merely about playing defense, but it's also about offense. And the adage that the best defense is a good offense. I think that the Democratic Party could do some of the push to force the administration to do more executive orders and dare the Republicans to try to pass legislation to counter them. I think we've got to do a better job of just truth telling. We've got to not just talk about things. And I want to say what I said years ago when Trump first ran. He's a shyster. He's a compulsive liar. He's a pathological liar. You can't outlie a liar. So we're going to have to deal with what can we put, as Attorney Patillo said, what can we put forth that you can touch, you can smell, you can hold, that says this policy is for you. This funding, this money is for you. We've got to produce for those who are inclined normally to vote Democratic to turn out and actually cast that vote. We've got to give them something real. We've got to give them something they can touch. Every day that you wake up in politics, it's a brand new day. It's your job to take advantage of the opportunities which are presented for that day. You can plan for tomorrow all you want, but the things that happen overnight or first thing in the morning, they upset all of those plans. Every day in politics is a brand new day. You've got to be agile enough and you've got to be skilled enough and have enough resources to be able to make that switch and address whatever the issues are in a different manner, shape, and form. So I'll agree with Attorney Patillo that the Democratic Party has its future in its hands. Biden has to do what Biden can do best. That's to be empathetic. That's once he gets some rest, is to be able to deliver the message. But I don't think we're going to change our presidential nominee. I think that that's going to be a bigger mess than the benefits that would come out of it. And we've got to make sure that we have a strategy that will offset the lies and the misrepresentations you're going to hear from the Republicans going forward. And you're not going to have all day to do it. You're going to have to be agile. You're going to have to respond. When they tell a lie, you got to come back with some facts and some truth and call it what it is. That's a lie. That's what I believe. That's how I've been inclined to operate for myself. I call it like I see it. And I think the people appreciate when you can bring them facts that would offset the fiction they may be getting from the other side. We got to do a better job of seizing the narrative and helping the people to understand.
Are you employing a bottom-up campaign strategy in this particular cycle?
Absolutely. We've never been successful with top-down. And that's what I think you look at the threats that are coming to Biden from the Hollywood sector. That's what they're trying to deploy, is that top-down strategy, is that everything that's good for us up here at the top is good for those folks down at the bottom. We've got to be energized. We being working families, poor folk, those who are on the fringe of society, we've got to be energized to where we take our own future in our own hands, and that hand has got to push the right button in that ballot box. To do that, you can't keep telling us to wait for this and wait for that. We're hungry now. We're naked now. We're poor now. We need something material that we can latch on to so that we know that you believe what you say and that you're actually going to do it. And I think that executive orders are an excellent way to proceed. And dare the Republicans in the House to try to undo it, to dare them to even talk about undoing it, dare Trump to talk against it. We've got to produce in this short period of time in giving hope and then delivering help, or it ain't nothing but hype.
Well, you know, John Howland brought up a point, and Dwight, I want you to speak to that before we close out with you, Robert. And both of you can, you know, any of you can. Democrats suspending all campaigning. Has anyone heard about that? Or are they suspending campaigning just for the week of this, convention? Because I mean, Dwight, maybe I shouldn't be shocked. I'm not shocked. I just find it interesting that it's almost as if we're in a state of mourning about what happened on Saturday. And everybody should agree on that. And everybody needs to shut up and not be upset about anything that they're dealing with in their lives. And let's move forward.
No, not quite. We was already in the state of mourning. We was in the state of mourning about Biden. If you remember, the headlines for the last 3 weeks has been, should Biden be on the ticket or not? And the preoccupation was how he looked at that debate. We was mourning about that. And so Trump took it up to another level, but it's not like Biden had this magnificent momentum coming into this week. And when I listen to what Patillo says, and he's right in terms of policy, but he's wrong in terms of who he's dealing with. Biden, in many ways, is to the right of Trump. And Biden, in many ways, is as racist as the Republicans, his administration. You just named a number about the dollar spent, $1 billion in the campaign, 14 million going to blacks at the convention side of this. He will unilaterally take 100 million of our dollars and send it over to Ukraine for whatever reasons, you know, fighting communism or fighting Russia, or whatever his logic is, but walk past our needs and our struggles and say, you know, love me because I put a black lady on the ticket. And that's enough, y'all. If you don't love me, you ain't black enough. And so at some point, there's an insult level. At some point, black people look at this and say, you don't think as much of us as Trump does. So we may as well risk, you know, our future with Trump. If you can just say, I'm going to unilaterally take $100 million and send it to Israel to bomb and kill children and women, black people at some point say, wait a minute, you know, enough is enough. This is not what we are about. And so the reason I say this is a done deal is because I don't see any commitment to make the policy adjustments to appease black people, because I just don't think they think that much of black people.
Before you respond to that, Robert Patillo, I want you Representative Hardaway to respond to that before we close out with you, Robert? Representative Hardaway,
Yes, ma'am.
do you?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think that Dwight had some points that you can't just let them treat you any old way, them being my Democratic Party. You've got to show them how to treat you, and that depends on what you accept. For too many years, we've allowed ourselves to be add-ons to the agenda. We're at the point to where we have a great deal of negotiation power, and we need to use it, and we need to see something real, and that's what will motivate our folks to get to the polls. And it's certainly going to make a difference in those states where the battleground states where the margin was so small last time, and we're trailing this time. It's going to make a difference. So yeah, give us something real. Give us something we can touch and feel and make our own. And it's not going to happen by itself. It's going to take elected leadership. It's going to take community leadership. It's going to take leadership in the media. Those like yourself who have a big voice, Santita, who can make changes happen by educating the public and then by inspiring them to action. And that action needs to be to get to the polls. But we've got to have some fuel. And that fuel is, what have you done for me lately for Joe Biden and the Democratic Party?
Well, I mean, and you saying that to Miss Jackson. Love it. But you know what? I got some breaking news. Judge dismisses classified documents indictment against Trump.
What a surprise. Yeah. So we got to do this ourselves. If we think that we're in tough shape now, put that fellow back in the office for 4 more years, see how he stacks not just the Supreme Court, but those federal courts, the appeals courts and the other district courts in between us and the Supreme Court. See what the programs are that he decides to promote and those that he discontinues. I promise you, you won't think he loves working families at that point. You'll see those big dollars going to the millionaires and the billionaires. I promise you, it's going to be a different world if you don't get up and go vote and vote a smart vote and protect the lives of your children, your grandchildren, and your own. You are literally going to be voting for your life come November. So let's cast a smart, informed vote, but let's cast a vote, and one that will protect you, protect your children, and generations to come. Vote for your life.
Dwight, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think he makes some good points. We see how it plays out. He just seemed to have more confidence in that administration than I do.
Okay.
And I don't think it's so much, it's not just what have you done for me lately, it's what have you done for me ever.
Well, Robert Patillo, your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are the ship is sinking. Buy some ammo, get some food, put together some emergency funds. Might have to get out of here. But at the same time, I think that in addition to that, we need to be looking for what can be done to potentially save us from this sinking ship and determine where exactly America is going. As we've seen, this is, if you ever watched House of Cards, this is a more ridiculous show than House of Cards.
The American version.
Yeah, the American version with Kevin Spacey that was on Netflix for years. The writers from that could have never imagined what we're going through currently. Even reading the ruling from Judge Cannon that you just cited, dismissing the classified documents case, which I think everybody believed was going to happen when they appointed a Trump judge to it. She simply says that the special counsel violated the Constitution by being appointed. So they're not even getting to the facts of the case, not even getting to the nature of the document stolen. Simply put, that as long as you are a president, if you appoint political loyalists to high positions, you don't have to obey any rules anymore. Trump has literally, by his judicial appointments while in office, made himself above the law, above the Constitution, above any criminal penalty, above civil penalty, above impeachment. He's rewritten the nation's laws, and somehow, while outside of power, while exiled in Elba, he has grown even stronger and is now is returning to a hero's welcome. And I don't think we're going to get a St. Helena moment where Trump is being sent off unless President Biden is able to harness the powers of the executive the same way that President Trump did. Looking back, it can be seen that the entirety of the first Trump term was bulletproofing him from any accountability on the chance that he lost. It was about rigging the electoral system. It was about changing voter suppression laws around the country. It was about installing Trump loyalists in the government to make sure that you would have a Supreme Court that would say that he's immune, that you have federal judges to say that the special counsel doesn't apply to him, that you would have a Congress that would, outside of his porn star trial, show up dressed in Trump uniforms, wearing the same suit, the same tie, the same jacket, on down the line, to the point that you become the party as opposed to adapting to the party. Donald Trump is putting pro-life platform to the Republican Party, and the Republican base has said nothing about it after fighting on a strong, strictly Trump had put a pro-choice plank in the Republican platform after Republicans have been strictly pro-life for the last half century. We're in a place very similar to what South Africa was at the transition from the previous white government, apartheid government, to civilian rule, where you start instilling yourself in the bureaucratic state so that you can control the levers of power, the level of the economy, the level of the justice system long after the democratic process has failed you. And either the Democrats are going to make this one last stand for democracy in this election, or we all need to just really be stockpiling ammo and food and goods and have a plan somewhere else that you can go, some land that you can get to, just in case. I got some cousins in Haiti. If y'all see me on a boat, don't try to get on the boat. There's no more room. I'm not helping anybody. Don't come swimming. Don't.
Oh no, you don't. No, because I pulled you in away from them in Florida. Don't you even try it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm riding with you, Robert.
The Jacksons are allowed on the boat, and that's about it. But Tina, you mention this to Reverend when you get a chance. Whenever I was with Reverend and had kind of be, wolf them at events, just because of some of the security threats we would still get in the Southeast region, I would bring a suitcase of guns everywhere that we went. When we were in Savannah for the Ahmaud Arbery trial, I had long distance rifles, I had pistols, I had sniper pistols.
Were you with Reverend?
Yeah, look, if somebody's going to attack Reverend, I was going to be there just in case. I love Shelley and all, but I don't think Shelley jumping on anybody. And it's a point that we have to understand the political realities that we are existing in currently, and we can either pretend that we are still in Oz. I saw the Wiz on Friday in New York, and we can still pretend that we're back home in Kansas, or we can understand that we are on the yellow brick road and the Wicked Witch is winning, and we can figure out a way to get out of this situation.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Who's going to say something before we go?
Did you want to see my sniper pistol?
Sure. Okay. Why not? Hey.
All right, so this is my sniper pistol with the red dot optic, the laser sight, and also the extended barrel with the fluting. The compensators on the top, because since it's a 10 millimeter round, instead of you get barrel rise, so the compensator on the top, it keeps you level when you're shooting.
Well, I don't have that. But I promise you, if you come for me, don't let me see you come. So I tell all them good old boys, don't let me see you come. But the one thing that we haven't really spent enough time on, Santita, is the fact that you look so good on your 30th birthday.
Oh, please. You know what? Praise the Lord. You know what my father told me on my 25th birthday, which will be 36 years ago? He said, if you don't like birthdays, try missing one.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
He said,
Yeah.
and we were at the Democratic convention. I'll never forget it because the first speech he gave in '84 was on my birthday. And I remember when he walked up to the lectern, which is why Robert has inspired me to write. All I could say was I was in a state of prayer all day. Number one, I was praying that we'd get to the Moscone Center because he was so threatened. And I just said, I just hope he gets there alive, and I hope no one shoots him while he's speaking. Because this was going to be the highest profile speech, not just of his lifetime. It was going to be the highest profile speech any Black person had given who could credibly give our perspective. Dr. King had not had that kind of audience, and but he was standing on his shoulders and he was trying to carry out his assignment. And I just remember looking at him walk there and I said, oh, praise God. I said, 21 years ago tonight, we were homeless. We were living with the Halseys in Greensboro, North Carolina. That was the night I was born. He walked to that lectern almost to the minute of my birth, 21 years before. My parents were poor college students. They had to stay with the Halseys. And Mrs. Halsey was my godmother, and she named me. I was rent money. So she said, if it's a girl, can I name her? My mother was like, yes, 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 yes. And one of the things that I saw the people crying that night from Mississippi, all these people had crowded the stage because somebody was standing up for us. And I think that we've got to carry that tradition forward. I guess that's all I really have to say. And I thought about that night. I said, wow, Dad, wow, we were homeless and look at God. But he said, we're not doing this for us. We're doing this for all of these, for Esther Thompson, who cleaned toilets in Chicago. But she was our lead usher. She was out in Robbins, Illinois. The Elias family, who had generations involved in push. Katie Pinkins, who helped to raise us. Mrs. Malone, my great grandmother, who couldn't read or write, who was at that time beginning to go into Alzheimer's, but she knew enough to know that she was so proud of her baby, right? And I just hope that I hope that we begin to grab our history. I think of your mother, my auntie Lois Dwight McKee, who would call me in the middle of doing a commercial break if she felt that my syntax was off. And I would say, no, but the subjects and verbs, they agreed, Auntie Lois. This is what I said. She said, okay, darling, because I don't want you to make a mistake. And I'm just hoping that we will really begin to embrace that which is most important for us to embrace, because uh, we can't get excited about a trip to the White House, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can't get excited about that. So, you know what I have to tell you? I've seen enough in my almost 61 years in 2 days. And I thank God. I thank God that I have health and strength and that I'm doing better than I was 20 years ago and 20 years before then. God is so good. I've seen my friends from college and they say, girl, you're moonwalking out of here. I said, I've been able to make peace and make a lot of sense about a lot of things. And my mother said, you shouldn't talk about your age. I said, no, my father told me the opposite. And you never get contradicted. But he said, I don't want you to fall into the trap a lot of women fall into, where you're ashamed of time that God has given you. So I'm not Aretha, who was 29 and holding at 80.
Well, you just look it, and I want to take the opportunity to uh, give my Aunt Fanny a happy 100th birthday shout out. I've given out a lot of proclamations, done a lot of resolutions, but until it's somebody in your family,
Oh my
you
God.
don't really appreciate what a century of living looks like, sounds like, and what the love is like.
Happy birthday, Aunt Fanny. We've got to talk about her life. I want you to come back and talk about that.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
cannot even imagine Robert Patillo and Dwight McKee, what she has seen.
Hmm.
I mean, I cannot even imagine.
I had an Aunt Anissa who was born in 1888 and lived to be 106. She's actually who taught me reading and writing. She was a school teacher for 60 years.
Wow.
And I still have her degree on the wall in my house. And people ask me, well, why do you know something about Black history? Well, it wasn't taught to me as history. It was just taught to me as stories that she would tell us. She had one eye and a pistol under her pillow at all times. And that generation of people really did shape our country. And then so happy birthday to your to her, and 100 years of that was an amazing accomplishment that many, very few, are able to experience.
And what a gift! What a gift! And what a gift she is to. I mean, for you to have been touched by 100 years of history and to have been shaped by it. And I have to say, you sound like you have been shaped by 100 years of history, which has made you a freedom fighter. I feel that with you, Robert Patillo, as you have also pushed to bring Black people in the diaspora together. You said, hey, we can't make it apart. We got to make it together. What did you say? If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, we go together.
Together.
Dwight McKee, I've known you practically all of my life. I thank God for you, for my Aunt Marty, his sister who used to babysit me. I was a flower girl in her wedding. Thank you, junior bridesmaid. Excuse me, junior bridesmaid. Yes, I was. I was so excited. I was 7. I was excited. Yes, I was. This made my life. Yes, it did. But his auntie, my auntie Lois, my uncle Frank, his parents, my big brother Donnie, who I love, his baby brother. I just thank God for all that you have sought to contribute down through the years, Dwight, and how you all have kept us on point. That means so much, because we're seeing a lot of things that can be really confusing. They really can be. But if we stop, and everybody take your emotion out of this, and start looking at the facts. Ask the questions. As my grandma Gertrude used to say, if something is unbelievable, don't believe it. She said, all of these superstars who these miracles, she said, if this is something you ain't never seen before, and she didn't say ain't because she was too caught up in education. She said, it's something you've never seen before. Don't you believe that? And you better know that this is a trick. You know, she was closing in on 100 when she died 7 years ago. So, you know, I'm just saying, this is your country. You need to take it because you made it. As my grandmama Helen used to say, if you can't take it, you can't make it. We're in for a bumpy ride, but that's all right. If you can't take it, you can't make it. And you cannot intimidate a people who have survived slavery everywhere we've been, Robert. You can call it colonialism, you can call it whatever you want. We have survived. But everybody who's come here to the United States has come here looking for something that they could not find or were denied at home. As Reverend Jackson said, we came here on different ships, but we're in the same boat now.
Yeah.
We are family, y'all, but we got to work this out. Love you, love you, love you. Love you, Yvonne. Love you, Kenneth. And you know, we've got our Rainbow Push Convention, the 15th through the 17th, leading into the Democratic Convention. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway, I promise you I'm going to call you today because we've got to talk about campaigning bottom up. That was something that Joshua Feinstein wants us to talk about. Because a lot of people, there's a lot of confusion at the top. And a lot of people don't want to be bothered with that. And we're going to have, I think, more space the closer we get to November. But in the meantime, you ought to be excited about the judge races, the state prosecutors, the county races, the local races. These are the people. School board. This is all politics. It's local, everybody. It is. So I'm sending you so much love, Bernadette, Yvonne, Kenneth. And boy, oh boy, people loved Robert's demonstrations today. Oh my word, Dwight, they love what you all, Representative Hardaway, Attorney Patillo, Dwight McKee, they've loved every point that you all have made because you're not hearing it any place but here at an independent media, but here on the Santita Jackson Show. Thank you all for making this show it's a privilege to be with you. It's just a privilege. Sending you so much love today. God bless you, everybody. Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. See you in the morning.